Hello and bonjour. Bienvenue à Product the Grind podcast. Welcome. I'm your host, Joel Kwashi, and I am here to talk about American soccer. The World Cup, as you already know, is coming to the States, Canada, and Mexico next June. Well, this upcoming June, rather. And yesterday, USA had I would say it's probably their marquee win, their major win under Pochettino, the head coach. They went against Uruguay. They beat Uruguay 5-1. I was watching the first half and I was just blown away of how dominant the U.S. squad looked. And they didn't have their A squad. It was essentially, you could say, their B squad. And they were so dominant. The goals, the headers, the pass, just their possessions, just holding on to the ball and being more strategic and more disciplined. I was shocked, to be totally honest with you. I've seen both squads, the U.S. men's team and Uruguay, in person. A couple years back, I went to Copa America. It was Uruguay versus Bolivia. And headed into the game, I was aware of Bolivia. They were the weaker nation in the Copa America tournament. I knew going into the game that, it's going to be an easy win for Uruguay. And it was. It was 5-0, a dominant win. The crowd was intense. The game was intense. The players were intense. It was an electrifying experience. I was wearing my Pele jersey, my New York Cosmos jersey, and they showered me with compliments. It was a great atmosphere, great experience. And fast forward to September of this year, I got to see the U.S. national team. They went against South Korea, and they lost against South Korea 2-0. And they had their top players for that game. The players from Euro, your Christian Pulisic, your Weston McKennie, and so on. And, heading to this game yesterday, well, I wasn't at the game physically, but I was watching it on TV, and I was like, this is going to be a tough game for the U.S. squad. Yes, I believe they won their last 4 games prior to this game against Uruguay, but I was still, pessimistic. But, was I was surprised. I was wrong. They looked dominant from start to finish. And it says a lot about, I really think it says a lot about what they're capable of doing. I do wonder what's going on behind the scenes. What is Pochettino doing now that's differently before? And they're building momentum. These games, yes, these games are considered friendlies. Both Uruguay and USA are in the World Cup. They're already qualified. So it's a friendly. Some folks will say this game doesn't necessarily count, but no. These games count, especially because you want to see how they do against a very disciplined nation like Uruguay. Whenever I see a South American team or a European team, especially the top teams, the top nations, if they go against a CONCACAF nation, I tend to lean against the CONCACAF nations. If a CONCACAF country like USA, Mexico, Canada, if they go against a Brazil, a Colombia, or in Europe, a Germany, or the Netherlands, I'm always going to lean with the European squad, the South American squad, because those are soccer nations. They sleep, breathe, eat football, right? So I was surprised. Amazing win for USA. I do wonder, how are they going to look in June when the World Cup arrives? And the fact they were able to pull off this win with their B team, essentially, that's a massive win. That's a marquee win. You have to give Pochettino his props, right? And they're on a 5-game winning streak. Amazing. And also shout out to Haiti, shout out to Panama, shout out to Curaçao, because they are now officially in the World Cup. And I was watching the game with Jamaica and Curaçao because Jamaica had a draw with Trinidad and Tobago a couple of days ago, and they needed to win this game to guarantee a spot in the World Cup. And it was a draw, right? And Jamaica, it's interesting because normally when I watch Jamaica, they're more a defensively sound team. Yes, they have their ups and downs. Yes, they are. They can be inconsistent with their performance. But heading into this game, I was expecting them to play more, be more defensively sound, and slow down the tempo whenever they had the ball. Look for those openings. But I don't know. I feel like they were playing a little too fast paced, a bit too aggressive, and maybe there's a lot of pressure. Playing at home in Jamaica, needing this win in order to guarantee a spot in the World Cup. I can't imagine that pressure for the players. So, but shout out to those 3 nations that secured their spot in the upcoming World Cup. And last week or a couple of weeks ago, rather, MLS made the announcement that they're now in 2027. They will adopt their schedule will shift. It will align more with the European World Football schedule, which is great. In my opinion, I think it's great because I think it's good for transfers. It aligns with World Football calendar, easier international transfers, loans, scouting, improve the rhythm of the player development. It helps MLS clubs compete better in the CONCACAF Champion Cups. So, it does makes it more exciting, especially with when you think of world football, and oftentimes I always think of Europe. It is the creme de la creme of world football, so it makes sense for them to align with their schedule. What I've heard often is that MLS teams can sell and buy at ideal times. Now, the cons that I do have in mind, or I had in mind when they made the announcement, is I think of the winter weather issues in Toronto, Chicago, in Jersey, New York. I'm not sure how it's going to be. I think they're going to have a winter break. I do wonder how it's going to be with fan attendance. I've been at games in February where it was cold, February, March, and it was always low attendance at those games. So it's going to be interesting. And also, I'm thinking about the potential schedule congestion because there's the Leeds Cup, the U.S. Open Cup. So we'll see how things play out. Again, this will happen in 2027, a year after the World Cup. Exciting times for American soccer. I did ask a question to a couple of folks about this, and some folks were thrilled about this schedule change, and some folks were like, there's other leagues in other countries in South America that they have a similar schedule like MLS current schedule, and they still manage to make trades with European clubs and vice versa. So we'll see how things play out. As a neutral, as a guy that enjoys the entire ecosystem of world football, soccer, world football, European football, South American football, U.S. soccer, I'm open to it. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening. Please follow me on X. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok. I have an Etsy shop. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.